Hello, this is Jock and coach of the San Francisco Cinderace. Today I'm going to be doing not only my battle video for the finals, but I'll be doing a quick review of how I think the season went, the team, what I think was worth the draft picks and what I think wasn't. But before we get into any of that, I did make a change between when I put up my team builder and when the battle took place. I swapped out my Sigilif for Silvally Dragon with multi-attack, flamethrower, U-turn, Thunder Wave. Max HP, max attack, 4 special defense. So with that out of the way, let's go right into the battle. So, in my team builder, I said the team I expected him to bring was Corviknight, Conkeldurr, Rotom, Goodra, Drapion, Araquanid. So the only thing that's not here is the Conkeldurr, and he brought the Whimsicott, which was surprising. Conkeldurr is his S tier, so I figured it would be here for sure. It's not, makes it a little easier on my team, and Whimsicott isn't too big of a problem. While it does hit the Flygon, Grimmsnarl, Vaporeon, the other, like Cinderace, Aegislash don't care too much, and he doesn't know Silvally's typing at this point, so it does have a good matchup, but I have ways to deal with it. So let's get right into the battle. I'm going to lead my Flygon. I wanted to lead Flygon because in our last matchup, he led his Drapion, and it did give me problems leading Cinderace. But this time he goes with Araquanid, which, when I was doing my team building, I didn't plan too much around Araquanid, which turns out to be a big problem. I have Vaporeon, which can take hits, but even it's not a perfect answer. So here I just want a U-turn because I get the feeling he's going to Liquidation, and he does. So we're going to absorb it with Water Absorb, and I carry Yawn, so that I can try and put stuff to sleep because I figured Araquanid was coming. So now that he's drowsy, I want to switch out because I figure he's going to do the same. I go into Grimmsnarl, he goes into Drapion. Now, this matchup might look bad on paper, but I got a couple things going in my favor. I have the Kebia Berry to resist poison. I've got my G-Max to double my health. So once I get all of that off, I'll be pretty safe. And I'm carrying Stomping Tantrum, which one-shots him if he's not a bulky variant. So we're just gonna... I thought about this for a while in the battle, if I needed to save my G-Max till later. And the only reason I would want to is to max guard some of Corviknight's moves, but I felt that Aegislash could tank anything Corviknight's going to throw at him with King Shield and Defense Form, so that I was okay using G-Max here to try and get some offensive pressure. So we're just going to G-Max and Max Quake. Worst case scenario, he goes into Rotom, but he stays in and Poison Jabs. So we eat the Kebia Berry and we get poisoned, which is a little unfortunate. And we see that he's probably got at least some bulk. Sorry about that. So with the Max Quake going off, we get a special defense boost. We get him down to about 11%, and he's probably got at least some bulk investment based on the damage, because otherwise it would have one-shot him. We get poisoned, which is unfortunate, but not the end of the world, because we're going to take a bunch if he stays in. I don't want to risk him going into Rotom or Corviknight to take a Max Quake, so I'm just going to click Max Darkness, because at the percentage he's at, it's going to kill him anyways. So yeah, Poison Jab does 43, which is quite a bit, and we're going to take Poison Chip, but we killed the Drapion, which is good. So Whimsicott comes in. I want to max guard because I know he can't go for Prankster against me because I'm a Dark type, so I want to see what he's going to go for, and the fact that he goes for just straight for a Moonblast makes me think he might be choiced, and the fact that he switches out when my Aegislash is in tells me that he's almost certainly either Scarf or Specs, because if he was some Prankster set with like Stun Spore or Sleep Powder or something like that, Aegislash is a prime target to hit with some sort of status to slow it down. So that made me believe that it's probably Specs or Scarf, one of the two, and didn't want to stay in and take a Flash Cannon. So he goes into Araquanid, and it's going to take a Flash Cannon very well. Gets a special defense drop, which is lucky on my end, and we're going to King Shield, because I had the feeling he was going to do something physical. Sure enough, he does, and now we're going to go into Vaporeon, and he switched up moves. Had he Leech Life again, we would have been in a bit of trouble, but he wanted to get a burn on the Aegislash if I stayed in, so he goes for the Scald. We get back up to full thanks to Leftovers, and now I'm going to Yawn again. That's going to be the interaction every time, just try and put this thing to sleep to get me some pressure. So he's going to go into Whimsicott, and I figured on that turn, since he had already switched out and doesn't want this Araquanid to go to sleep, it's not something like the Rest Talk, or Sleep Talk Araquanid that wants to use like maybe sub and then rest and then start sleep talking liquidations or scalds, that sort of thing. So he doesn't want to be asleep, so there was no reason for him to stay in. And I had the decision of, do I go for Hydro Pump and I think the Rotom's coming in, or do I Ice Beam and think that either Goodra or Whimsicott's coming in? And I figured that he was probably going to bring in Goodra, because the Goodra I have predicted he would brought Thunderbolt to deal with Vaporeon. So I Ice Beam to see, mainly to scout if he sent in Goodra to see if it's AV or not. But he brings in Whimsicott, and I get 60%, which is very nice, honestly. And he's going to switch back out and not risk it. I'm going to Ice Beam again just to see if he stayed in. And he doesn't. I didn't think he would, but gotta take what I can get. And we're going to Yawn one more time. This time, he's going to end up letting it go to sleep, which I was not expecting. I Hydro Pumped, figuring, okay, we've done this interaction a couple of times. He switches out most of the time. Araquanid's at full health, so there's no downside to using a water move just in case he brought Water Absorb, which I didn't think he would, but I haven't been able to tell because all of the water moves have gone into Vaporeon, so I haven't been able to see if he's got Water Bubble or not. So I figured, okay, I'm going to Hydro Pump this time, because if he brings in Goodra, it's going to do some damage. If he brings in Whimsicott, it probably kills, and if he brings in Rotom, it almost one-shots the Rotom. So Hydro Pump was a pretty safe option. I miss it, and he stays in and Leech Life. It gets me down to about 40%, and he falls asleep. So here I go Flygon, and now that Araquanid's asleep, he switches out, which I wasn't expecting. I was trying to bring in Flygon and get some damage off with the Flygon while it was asleep. So he goes into Goodra, and this is a bit of a conundrum for me, because if he's carrying Ice Beam, Flygon's in trouble, and I know he's going to be carrying a Dragon move, so I don't want to switch Silvally in straight away. I don't want to risk losing Grimmsnarl, because I should explain the reason I'm keeping Grimmsnarl around, even though I'm pretty sure this is a choiced Whimsicott. If it's not a choiced Whimsicott and turns out that it's got, say, like Encore, Leech Seed, Stun Spore, any of the prankster moves that it likes to use, then Grimmsnarl's a good switch because he can't be affected by them. So I'm trying to keep Grimmsnarl healthy until I have a little better idea on what this Whimsicott wants to do. So here, I'm thinking about what my options are. I could switch into Aegislash, but if he predicts that with a fire move, then I'm in trouble. So I ended up going for Draco Meteor, and I figured we'll see how much damage it does. Conkeldur's not here, which was the big thing I needed Flygon for, to take Earthquakes if Conkeldurr was here, because that's his best way to hit Aegislash likely. So no Conkeldurr means I don't need to save Flygon for anything. So we're going to Draco Meteor. So we Draco, and it does 60%, so I can see that's not Assault Vest, or it would have taken it much, much better. So he's some sort of choice item. And he's going to stay in, and he Ice Beams. So the fact he stayed in, and I know that that's not AV, tells me he's choice something. Whether that's Scarf or Specs, I don't know. I couldn't tell off the damage, and I was guaranteed to be faster because I was Scarfed. So either way though, I know he's Scarfed. Or, I know he's choiced. And that means that he's going to Ice Beam again, and that does not scare Aegislash at all. I can fire off a Shadow Ball and finish this Goodra off based on the damage we did, or anything else that comes in is going to take a pretty big chunk. The Araquanid comes in, and he's going to eat the Shadow Ball, which is probably a good call. It's one of his more specially defensive things. We go back into Vaporeon. Honestly, him putting the Araquanid to sleep was a very good call, because now the main threat behind Yawn, at least the way I was using it, wasn't I'm going to put you to sleep. It was, you're going to have to switch out if you don't want to go to sleep, and I could force switches that way. Now that he's put it to sleep, Vaporeon's not that great of an answer anymore, because Leech Life is doing 1/3 of its health every time it uses it. So while I'm Ice Beaming, it's not really doing much. I'm just trying to burn turns till he wakes up and I can Yawn him again and see if I can force him out. The Leftovers recovery is nice that I let it sit and get healed up a little bit, but he's going to Leech Life Silvally, which doesn't do much because we're bulky, and we're going to get the Thunder Wave off and an immediate paralysis. So this Silvally, it's interesting. It's not as offensive as a lot of the other ones I brought, And had he brought in Rotom, we would have been in some trouble, but it staying in was quite nice. So we're just going to U-turn back into Vaporeon, and he gets paralyzed again. So now, here's the other problem. It's paralyzed. I can't sleep it anymore with Yawn. So Vaporeon's really just coming in on the switch to take a water move, if I think that's what he's going to use. But I knew the Leech Life was coming, and I had a couple options. Aegislash takes bug moves very well because they're 4 times resisted. He's in defense form. He could have taken a Leech Life. The off chance he goes for a Scald and burns me is what I don't want, because with the health a lot of his stuff is at, I can do a lot of damage with Shadow Sneaks. So I'm trying to keep it around for Shadow Sneaks. Grimmsnarl was already low, and I was thinking more and more that Whimsicott is choiced and not that sort of prankstery set, so I figured it was okay to let him go down at this point. And he does die to the Leech Life. So we're going to go back into Silvally. I'm going to multi-attack because it's going to do a chunk, and he gets paralyzed again, which is very unlucky considering that's what, 2 out of 3 that he's been paralyzed on so far? Or 3 out of 4, one of the two? Very unlucky either way. But I felt Silvally was safe because I knew it'd do it enough damage that I could clean it up with either Cinderace or Aegislash. And if Silvally doesn't die, then even after a Leech Life, I'm going to do enough damage that I would be able to kill it. So the paralysis was very helpful that I stay nice and healthy, but I think I would have been able to kill it either way. So we're just going to U-turn on the off chance he went into Whimsicott there. He does not. So with the Rotom, I'm weakness policy Aegislash, but I was mainly weakness policy to eat a knockoff from Drapion or an Earthquake from Conkeldurr or a Fire Punch, something along those lines. Rotom Heat, even unboosted, like if it's just Rotom Heat with like, I don't know, a Resist Berry and max special attack, is going to one-shot the Aegislash that I brought with an Overheat, so I can't stand. I went into Silvally to see what he wants to do, and he's going to Volt Switch. We only take 15, so we eat it very nicely, and he goes into Whimsicott. So here, I don't know if this was the right play or not, letting Silvally go down, because I had a good feeling he was going to Moonblast, and it only does a little bit to both Aegislash and Cinderace. But, I mean, Silvally, the big reason to keep Silvally around was Rotom. But I let him go down. Thinking about it now, I don't think it was the right call, but that's what I did. So going into Cinderace here, we know we should be faster unless he's Scarfed. And if he is Scarfed and Moonblast, it's not going to do much because it's resisted. And if I look at what he has left, he has Corviknight, doesn't want to eat a Pyro Ball. Goodra can eat a Pyro Ball, but at the health it's at, it's not going to take one on the switch and another move. Rotom can take one Pyro Ball, but not a Pyro Ball and a high jump kick. And Whimsicott can't take a Pyro Ball. So something is not going to be happy this turn. So he brings in Rotom, and the Pyro Ball does just under half, and we're going to high jump kick and finish him off, because high jump kick did like 50 to 60, I want to say. So here, this was another misplay. High jump kick is guaranteed to do more damage. Like, it would have killed had it connected. So I should have high jump kicked in this situation. I Pyro Balled on the off chance that Corviknight comes in. But the Pyro Ball, I believe it was a roll on whether or not it would kill, but it needed to be a max roll. So it doesn't kill, and he Dracos, but I luck out and it misses. So had I Pyro Balled, not killed, and that Draco Meteor hits, this is a very different game, and I should have high jump kicked, because that very well might have cost me the match had it connected there. I'm going to U-turn. I don't want to risk anything missing, and it'll do enough to finish it off. Also, I want to get Aegislash in, because Aegislash kills Whimsicott with Flash Cannon, and if he starts Corviknight and goes into G-Max, Aegislash can stall out the G-Max the best out of what I have available. So we're going to get the Corviknight to G-Max, and he's going to start Steel Spiking. The Shadow Ball is going to do a lot of damage, and then get a special defense drop. So very lucky there on the 20%. I got one on Flash Cannon and Shadow Ball this game. We're going to King Shield so we don't take much damage and get back into defense form. And then right here we just want to Shadow Ball again, get some more damage off on him. and then he's going to go down to about 45, return to normal. So here's the deal. The health he's at, he dies to a Shadow Ball. The health I'm at, I don't think I die to a Brave Bird. So the game here is, what is he gonna do? If he Brave Birds, then the right move is to King Shield, drop his attack, and get back into defense form. If he does anything else, if he bulk ups, if he subs, if he roosts, then I should be Shadow Balling. And looking at what he's got 2.5 defense. I've got the special defense drop. I think he's gonna go for the roost. So I stay in attack form and I click Shadow Ball, and he does roost. So the Shadow Ball is going to chunk him for 70% of his health, and now he cannot take another. So he's gonna Brave Bird. I do end up living, and the Shadow Ball is gonna finish him off. So the Whimsicott has to come in, and here I figured Shadow Sneak might kill him, and if it doesn't, then Cinderace comes in and finishes him off. And we U-turn once again, don't want to risk a miss, but we did it. We pulled it off. A lot of luck was needed, but we ended up winning our first championship. So pretty happy about that. Not quite as happy with how it went, honestly. A lot of luck that needed to happen for it to come through. Wasn't ideal, but it's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. But yeah, good game to my opponent. He played it very well. The Whimsicott definitely threw me off. I figured that Conkeldurr would be there and give me problems because I'm being honest, even though Whimsicott has a good matchup, I wasn't that worried about it unless it was a Prankster set. And from the looks of it, he didn't bring a Prankster set. It seemed to be choiced some way. Probably going to be actually Specs because my Cinderace outsped now that I think about it. But yeah, good game to my opponent. It was a close one, and if I didn't get that string of paralysis on the Araquanid or the Draco miss, I think it could have been a different game. But that was the match. We took home our first championship. Pretty happy with that. One loss all season, same as last year, but we got the championship this time. Like I said, I would like to do a team recap quickly before we finish things off. So I figure I should start with my Grimmsnarl. So as far as Gmaxes go, I think Grimmsnarl is one of the better ones that was available. Double health plus a base 120 attack makes him very threatening. He has a really good typing in Dark Fairy. He only has 2 weaknesses to Poison and Steel. He gets good coverage. He gets, in physical, he gets, Fighting Ground, Grass, Electric Fire, Ice, which is really good physical coverage. Special, he gets Focus Blast on top of his 2 stabs. You can run him supportive with Screens or Thunder Wave or Taunt. You can run Sucker Punch. There's so many ways you can run him. He's such a good support Pokemon. And then the Gmax makes him such a big offensive threat. I'm beyond pleased with Grimmsnarl. Couldn't be happier. Way better than how I think Hatterene would have turned out had I stuck with Hatterene. So yeah, very pleased with Grimmsnarl. We finished the season with a 19-8 kill-death ratio. Puts him in a tie for 3rd for most kills in the league, which is great, honestly. Came every week, was useful every week, so beyond pleased with Grimmsnarl. I would say even without a Gmax, I'd be willing to draft him again. Up next we have Aegislash, my S tier. So, at the start of Gen 8, they nerfed Aegislash. They took 10 off of his stats. So if he's in shield form, he went from 150 defenses to 140. If he's in blade form, he went from 150 offenses to 140. And they nerfed King Shield. It doesn't drop your attack by 2 if you make contact, it drops your attack by 1. Even with those changes, I think Aegislash is still amazing. And you have to remember, he didn't have access to a lot of his home moves. He didn't have Toxic, he didn't have Shockwave, some of the other things that make him scary. He finished the season 13-4, came every week. The fact that he just gets very annoying moveset to deal with, King Shield, Shadow Sneak. Those two make him such a big problem for a lot of things. That they just don't have a good way to deal with him. You can't use moves like Feint because he's a ghost type unless you have Scrappy, which is such a niche thing to deal with Aegislash that not every team in the league could, even if they wanted to. He doesn't get hit by one of Steel's big counters. King Shield is there to help him soak up moves from a Gmax Pokemon. You can run him physical or special. You can put weakness policy on there. You can put a boosting item like Band, Specs, or Scarf. There's just so many different things he can do. He's so versatile that it makes him tough to build around. The fact that I could bring Physical with Close Combat and Shadow Sneak, or I could bring Special with Shadow Ball Flash Cannon, makes him a big problem for a lot of teams. So I would say in our next season, if Age Slash is allowed and he's got Toxic, he's going to be one of the best things in the league, hands down. I would say anybody who has first pick, if he's available, take him. He's great. He's really solid. You can use him however your team needs him. Beyond pleased, over the moon with how Age Slash performed this season. He was key in a lot of my games, and even my one defeat. If I wasn't unlucky, I think he would have been the key to winning that game as well. Cinderace. So I had a couple people telling me Cinderace wasn't as good as I thought. Smogon Stats agreed with me that he was good. He was on something like 40% of teams in OU. He has Court Change, so literally nobody brought hazards except the Jacksonville Jolteons, who only brought him because it was their G-Max move. So Court Change alone kind of spooked people off of bringing any hazards against my team. Pyro Ball hits like a truck. He gets High Jump Kick, Sucker Punch. He gets Electro Ball. He could even be run Special. He gets stuff like Zen Headbutt. And then status-wise, you could run Workup, you could run Taunt, you could run Baton Pass. And the fact that he still gets U-Turn on top of all that stuff, he's very solid. His stats aren't as great as something like Age Slash. He doesn't have the defensive bulk to back it up, but at base 119, speed and a very high attack as well makes him a very good wall breaker that he can just hit stuff with Pyro Ball, force switches, U-Turn out on things that threaten him. He's a top tier offensive threat, and I'd be willing to draft him again in a heartbeat. I know his G-Max should be coming out next season, and if it's available, that's probably what I want to draft in all honesty. His hidden ability is likely to come out at the same time, and if that's allowed, he's going to be in S tier for sure. I would draft Cinderace again in an instant. Up next we have Flygon. Start of the season for Flygon was pretty rough. I think he started off like 0-2. Wasn't doing hot, but picked up steam as the season went along. Flygon, while he didn't do anything outstanding for me, I think there's a lot of potential that I wasn't able to use. He picked up Dragon Dance, so he can do a lot of work with that. He's got physical or special sets that could both be run. The main thing I was using him for was another offensive pivot with Choice Scarf, was most of the weeks I brought him. And he filled that role quite well. He would outspeed most things on the enemy team, because this season there weren't many things that were faster than the base 100. I was able to just Choice Scarf him, outspeed anything on the other team, and U-turn out and bring things in to take a defensive hit, or he could come in at the end of games and clean stuff up. So happy with Flygon. I would say if there's other dragon types available, like the Goodra or that sort of thing, I would probably draft them over Flygon. But in the context of my team, I needed something that could dodge ground moves because I had no flying type at the start of the season. So I think Flygon, while he wasn't perfect, he filled the job I needed him to do, and he did it quite well. So I would say, if you're looking at Flygon, if you want to draft him, go for it. Just be aware that ice types are going to give you problems, as with any dragon type. Up next we had Silvally. So Silvally was interesting. Coming into the last week of the season, Silvally had come, what would that be, 6 times and had no kills. The big reason behind that was that I was not using Silvally the way I built Silvally. So a lot of weeks I'd be bringing max speed, 3 attacks, and then a pivot move. Once I started bringing bulky Silvally, max HP, max attack Silvally, I started seeing a lot more success towards the end of the season in the playoffs. He picked up all 4 kills in the last 3 weeks of the season, and I think he's very solid. His biggest problem is that even though he can change his type, he's still only a single type Pokemon, and he doesn't have the move pool to back it up a lot of times. There's certain types that can make it work. Take, for instance, when I brought the Water Silvally, I was able to cover for a lot of the things that wanted to take water moves otherwise. But his physical move pool isn't the greatest. The fact that he gets, it would be multi-attack for whatever type you are. He gets Rock Slide, Crunch, Iron Head, Psychic Fangs. I think that's most of it. He gets Fire Fang, Thunder Fang. But yeah, a little bit lacking physical-wise. The big thing he would get in the league that allows home moves would be Flame Charge, which could make a sweeping Silvally a lot more threatening. But honestly, I wouldn't say he's worth the B tier pick. The fact that he can change types is nice, but I think I would have been better off taking a different B tier in his place, and I would have been able to get more out of them. I could have taken another sweeper or a separate wall, something along those lines. I could have picked up probably Roserade would have been the B tier I picked up and used Roserade more effectively. So I think he's good, but the home transfer moves hurt him a lot, and I didn't figure out how I personally could use him best till the end of the season. So a little bit disappointing. I don't know if I would draft him in his current position as a B tier pick. As a C tier, I would say he's a very solid C tier pick, and you should take him early if he's there. But as a B tier, I wouldn't pay the price I paid with one of my first couple picks to pick up Silvally. Vaporeon's up next. Now, at the start of the season, I wanted Seismitoad as my water absorber, but a lot of the water absorbers went early because I took Flygon Silvally with my first 2 out of 3 B tier picks, and out of the ones that were left, I think it was Vaporeon Arctovish, I went Vaporeon. And it was sort of a last minute pickup, but I feel like Vaporeon performed very well for what I needed it to do. Its 2-4 record doesn't really reflect how useful it was. I didn't bring offensive Vaporeon at all. It was a defensive niche this entire season for me. I could bring it physically or specially defensive with Yawn and Wish and Baton Pass and burn things with Scald, that sort of deal. And once home moves come out with Toxic Heal Bell coming back, Vaporeon's going to be even better. If it gets Toxic to cripple opposing walls, it's going to be great. And if it gets Heal Bell Wish, it can perform a full Cleric job again. So I think Vaporeon is really good already, and once its home moves come out, it's going to be even better. If it stays at its current position of a B tier, I would say it should probably be one of the first water absorbers to go out of the tier once it picks those sort of things up. And yeah, very happy with Vaporeon. Its skills don't reflect how useful it was. It was very solid for me this season. So we move into C tiers. Now, for that we have to come over here because I had quite a lot of C tiers that I have cycled through this season. So, starting us off, my first C tier I dropped was Ferroseed. So Ferroseed was a pickup I made during the draft because I wanted Stealth Rocks and Grass type. Looking into his stats after the fact, even with Eviolite, he's below average. He doesn't have the HP to back it up. He doesn't have the move pool of his bigger brother Ferrothorn. He doesn't have HP or offensive stats, really, so not too solid. I wouldn't draft him unless you really, really need a Stealth Rocks user, and that's the only reason you're picking him up. I picked up Steelix for one matchup, which I felt was solid for the matchup I picked him up for, and would have been really good. He gets Iron Defense Body Press now, on top of Rocks, EQ, and his whole standard setup. I think Steelix is a very solid C tier pick if you want a ground or steel type from that tier. I think he could be good offensively or defensively, and he's even better offensively if you're running a Trick Room setup. So I think he's a very good niche C tier. I didn't end up keeping him all that long because I picked up Sigilyph. Now Sigilyph is somebody I kept on the team the rest of the season after I picked him up. I was very impressed with how well he performed for me. Magic Guard plus Life Orb is extremely strong. You just get a free 1.3 times boost to all of your moves. On top of that, you could bring stuff like Stored Power with Psycho Shift and Cosmic Power and Roost if you want to run a really weird set. You could bring other stuff with like Tailwind or Screens if you wanted to run that. Full offensive with like Energy Ball, Heat Wave, other coverage moves like Dazzling Gleam. So I think Sigilyph was one of the better C tiers I picked up all season. I would definitely draft him again because I usually don't pick up flying types, but he did extremely well for me as a flying type. So yeah, very happy with Sigilyph. Next up we have Phalanx. Excuse me. Who I had high hopes for coming into the season. His combination of No Retreat and Fighting Stab was very, very attractive, but I never really saw any good opportunities for him to get it off. He has base 75 HP and just okay defenses. So while I was interested, I don't think that he performs the way I thought he was going to. Here, let me queue up our next one here. He doesn't perform quite the way I thought he was going to. So with that said, like, he could be good, but you need an opportunity for him to get set up, which is tricky to find with his low base HP. So if you have a good matchup for him, he's quite admirable. But other than that, he's just kind of going to sit on your bench the whole time, I think. We switched Phalanx for Hitmonchan, mainly because Hitmonchan gets Rapid Spin. Hitmonchan's good, but has the same problem Phalanx does, a low base HP and below average defenses. So out of the two, I think I would have rather kept Phalanx. I picked up Hitmonchan for the Rapid Spin clearance, though. I would say Hitmonchan's okay if you need a fighting type, but definitely not my first choice. Then we got Barbaracle. Now, Barbaracle is a long standby for me. If you come down here, you can see Season 1, I drafted Barbaracle out of the gate. He went 6-2 for me in 2 games that he was brought. Shell Smash plus Tough Claws makes him very, very scary for a lot of things to deal with. And he has good coverage that lets him deal with grass types and X's or Poison Jab, that sort of thing. So I think Barbaracle is very good. But I picked him up for one matchup, and then I felt that Crustle was a better Shell Smasher for the purposes I needed. I still wanted something else defensive to go along with Vaporeon, so the Crustle, while I only brought him, I think it was the once, maybe twice? Just the once. He still did very well. The fact that Crustle still has knockoff in a metagame that doesn't have too many knockoff users was very helpful. So keeping him able to knock stuff off, bring in Shell Smash or Stealth Rocks or Spikes, and then get off his Rock and Bug Stabs was very potent. I think Crustle's worth it if you wanted something defensive that can double as offensive. It's similar to Steelix in that manner. That it's got a base 125 defense, and then it can come in Shell Smash and do a bunch of damage to something. I think it's definitely worth it because it still has decent coverage and stuff like Earthquake if you wanted to do that. Next up we had Manectric. Now I brought Manectric 1 week, and he got 4 kills that week for me. So I think Manectric was very good. He's base 105 speed, so especially in this metagame he was very fast. His biggest problem is with the removal of Hidden Power. His only special coverage was Electric, Fire, and Normal. So as long as you have a matchup where he's okay only having Electric, Fire, Normal, if you go into a team where their only ground type is, say, like an Excadrill, then you have a very good reason to use Manectric. Otherwise, he struggles a little bit punching through teams that have something like, say, a Mudsdale as their ground type. But I think for what you're getting, or for what you're paying for a C tier, you're getting base 105 speed, you're getting something with Volt Switch and okay special coverage. I think Manectric did really well, especially the way I used him. I would say he's one of the better C tier electric types because he still has Lightning Rod, if you wanted to bring Lightning Rod. And Static, if you think that's going to work out better for you. I think he's up there as one of the top electric C tiers this season. I swapped him out for Raichu, mainly because Raichu had better special coverage. But here's the big thing, that Raichu and Manectric do differently. Raichu is a little bit faster, but his special attack is considerably lower. He's base 90, Manectric's up there, I think he's base 110, I want to say. So if you aren't running Choice Specs Raichu, you're not going to be doing very much damage. He gets Nasty Plot, which could help, but basically you're going to have to set up with Raichu, whereas if you just throw Manectric in there with a Choice Scarf, he's going to do good damage still. So I think Raichu, the big trade-off is coverage. You're getting moves like Surf, Grass Knot, Focus Blast, those sort of things, but you're missing out on the fact that you're forced to run Choice Specs if you want to do big damage with them. So I think it's a trade-off on whichever one you value more, if you would pick up Raichu or Manectric, because they both get Lightning Rod, which is one of the big reasons to draft them if you don't have a ground type. So I think they're both good. I would say I like Manectric better for my purposes. And then finally, we had Cinccino for a lot of the season, and I tried to make him work. He's one of my favorites to use, but I wasn't having very good success with him. He just didn't have any good chances to pull off like a King's Rock sweep with Skill Link or anything like that. And I really needed Rosalia for aromatherapy for a couple of my matches, so I ended up swapping him out. And don't get me wrong, Cinccino's still useful. It gets U-turn and knockoff and those sort of things if you want to use that. I just didn't have any success with the style I was trying to play. and I felt like I could use that slot for something better. I still think Cicino is very good, especially if your team is slow overall. I believe it's base 115, so it's very quick. Its biggest downside is similar to Manectric. It doesn't have great coverage. It gets its big 3 in Rock Blast, Tail Slap, Bullet Seed, but that's about it. You're going to have Knockoff U-Turn, but otherwise there's not much you're using that's going to catch anybody off guard. And then we picked up Rosalia. I didn't end up bringing Rosalia any weeks, but it still seems quite solid. Poison Point is a very good ability, as well as Natural Cure. Grass Poison is a very solid typing, and it's got good defenses. They get boosted even further by Eviolite. And then on top of that, it has a base 100 special attack, so it's still very threatening, even though it's a middle evolution. So say that you need an aromatherapy user, all the other ones in C tier got taken. I think Rosalia does just fine for what you want. But if you're looking for an offensive grass type or a super defensive grass type, it's not the way to go. You're mainly picking it up because it's a cleric and it's going to status stuff with Toxic or Sleep Powder or set up Toxic Spikes for you. It's not going to be a big offensive threat. It's not going to be an amazing defensive wall. So I think that Rosalia is good, but certainly not the best grass type in C tier available. But yeah, that was our team overview. I think, like I said, these 3 I would draft again in a heartbeat. The Vaporeon and Flygon were both very solid. Sigilyph was amazing. The others all did okay, but about what you would expect, and I think Silvally sort of underperformed my expectations. Definitely not bad, but not as good as I thought he was going to be. But yeah, that was our team this season, and we finished in first place. Where would it be? So we finished the regular season in first place. Playoffs, we ended up taking the championship. Very happy about that. So we got next season coming up. I know we're supposed to add a couple more teams. We're waiting on the DLC to come out, so we're going to get some new Pokemon in there. We're talking about using home moves now, so we're going to get Toxic back on everything. Very excited about looking forward to all that. And overall, very happy with how the season went. So thank you for sticking with me through all these pretty long-winded videos for the most part. And thank you for watching the San Francisco Cinderace in our first season that we took a championship. Thank you.